Happy Friday, everyone. This is Dr. Schilling from Sequoia Health bringing you this week's Friday live Q&A. And let's see if we can get this system all set up here. All right. Looks like Kathy's commenting on something. All right. So we'll give everybody a couple minutes here to join the party, shall we say. And if for some reason you cannot hear me, we're working on getting the kinks out of our AV systems here. Just let us know and we'll be happy to work on that. Once we have a few minutes here under the belt, get some people on, then we'll go ahead and get going here. Hope everybody's enjoying this beautiful summer weather here in Minnesota or wherever you are across the country, because it's for us here in Minnesota, it's pretty amazing. So, all right. See if I can. There we go. A little less white out. There we go. Much better. Okay. Good. So we got a lot of good stuff, a lot of good questions today for everyone who's interested. We'll talk about things from everything from negative patterns to core exercises to bone broths and things like that, hormone balance and dreams, as well as line of healthy and unhealthy. Looking at the line of healthy and unhealthy. Okay. All right. So we got a bunch of good questions today. Fantastic. So let's just dive on in. All right. Give everybody some opportunity to view this later when they have it at their leisure. Don't forget to proceed as if success is inevitable, because if you don't, failure is inevitable. All right. Great. So first question for today is, if we find a negative pattern within ourselves or our friends, what are steps we can take to for ourselves to reset? So identifying a negative pattern. So what is a negative pattern, first of all? I'm going to speak in the context of QNRT. QNRT is a brain-based healing modality that helps people resolve their stresses so they no longer anchor them in the past and allow them to move forward. So a negative pattern is, think of it as an underlying cause of self-sabotage. And when you understand that we typically pick up negative patterns from watching mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, people like that. And that frames our belief system. So a negative pattern can be running in your subconscious brain all day long and resulting in you, let's say you have a car and you're going on a straight road and your alignment is off. So a negative pattern is going to cause you to constantly drift off the course. And eventually you'll realize and you'll bring yourself back on, and then the negative pattern kicks back in and it tends to drift you off maybe a different direction. And then you steer yourself back on. So a negative pattern is an underlying cause of self-sabotage in this context. We'll speak in this context without having more information about the person's asking. But when we identify a negative pattern within ourselves, because you can, if you have a friend that has a negative pattern or you see some type of pattern there, you could suggest that they might be dealing with something. You could suggest that you're seeing a pattern in them and say, I don't know if this is accurate. I don't know if you see this, but I'd rather risk offending you and tell you than share this with you than not share it at all. And that way you let them know, like, look, this is going to be a challenging conversation because I'm seeing a negative pattern, but I'd rather risk offending you and mention it to you than not mention it at all. So when you can do that, say it in a way that's not going to make them feel defensive and allow them to not feel attacked. And you're coming from a nurturing and loving place when you say, hey, I'm not sure if you've noticed this, but what I've seen is a pattern. And as a result, what I'd like to do is help you understand what I'm seeing from the outside because I care about you. So go with that. That's the safest way to help themselves, if it is a friend indeed, because you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. You can't say the right thing to the wrong person. It just doesn't happen. But when you identify a negative pattern in yourself, so let's focus on ourselves because you can't change anything else. You can change your hair, your body weight, your overall disposition toward other people, but you can't change other people. Okay, so focus on monitoring yourself, focus on healing yourself, and help bring to your friends' attention. So if you identify a negative pattern, first and foremost, you want to find a way to disrupt it. So for example, if you find yourself having challenges with overdoing something like exercise or drinking or food or anything like that, those are good ideas of maybe negative patterns. And those negative patterns may have developed as a result of watching someone else in your life and picking up their stress, or being indoctrinated into their belief system, because from birth to 7 you're just being hypnotized by everybody else around you. So negative pattern, identifying it first is the most important thing. And journaling is a great way to do it, because when you can take a step back and read what you've written and kind of analyze yourself, then you can help yourself feel more aware. And the first thing to changing a negative pattern is self-awareness. Because most of us live in, the vacuum, in the silo, where there's not much else going on other than the thoughts that are bouncing around on the inside of our head. And as human beings, we can reason away a lot of things. So when you become aware of a negative pattern, either through your own self-reflection or from the observation of someone else that cares about you, then you say, okay, how does that negative pattern fit into my life? Is it being triggered by something else, sometimes some circumstance? Is it a context that I'm finding myself in? Is it a certain person I'm interacting with? If that negative pattern repeats itself over and over, let's see. Okay. Evidently, I was not live on Instagram. Okay. Rookie mistakes, I tell you. So I guess we're live on Instagram now. Fantastic. So what we're talking about is negative patterns. Negative patterns are subconscious mechanisms that are causing self-sabotage. They're underlying causes of self-sabotage in your life. So when you become aware of one in your life, and you can identify it, and you can say, okay, I find myself in this circumstance, in this context, with these certain people, I'm experiencing this stress. Or I find myself doing X, Y, and Z, or consuming X, Y, and Z, when I find myself in the context of this relationship, this place, these people. Then you can identify that pattern. You can go about breaking that pattern by saying, okay, I'm going to choose to be mindful of what I'm eating, drinking, saying, doing in the context of these people or in the context of this location, which is going to help us sort of short-circuit the process. When you can short-circuit a negative pattern, you can start changing your life. There's an old saying that you'll never change anything about your life until you change something you do on a daily basis. When you can change something you do on a daily basis, then you can totally transform your life. But don't worry about transforming 10 things at a time. Pick one thing and just go for it. Pick one thing and just stick to it and say, okay, once you get the conscious competence and like, okay, I can handle this, then it becomes unconscious, and then you can forget about that and focus on something else. So negative patterns are best broken by identifying them first, becoming self-aware. Second, figuring out what the triggers are in that context, whether it's a person, place, thing, certain type of emotional setting, certain type of physical setting, whatever it might be. And from there, what you can do is you can break that pattern by saying, okay, it's these people or these situations and this and that, so I'm now aware of them, I'm now conscious of them, and when I go into it, what I can do is then I can break the pattern by saying, okay, fantastic, I've now identified person, place, or thing, circumstances, whatever's triggering me into causing this negative pattern, and then I can go about stopping that. Looks like Deb has joined us. Hi, Deb. All right, so that's a negative pattern in a nutshell. Once you identify, once you become self-aware of it, you can break the pattern. There's a question here about, is QNRT beneficial for those suffering with anorexia? Absolutely. The answer to your question in a short form is that yes, QNRT is definitely beneficial for people with anorexia. It can be beneficial for people with bulimia, people with so anorexia, if you don't know, you'd be surprised if you didn't, but people who starve themselves. Bulimia is people who overeat and then cause themselves to purge. There are also other addictions like exercising, over-exercising. There's addictions in food from a different standpoint, like binging and just binging straight up, just overeating in general, overuse of alcohol or drugs and things like that. But anorexia is the one this person asked about. So anorexia is basically starving yourself because you have a self-devaluating conflict. You're looking at yourself through a lens of defectiveness, which says, I'm not good enough the way I am. It's a warped viewpoint based on someone else's idea. So a person who typically is challenged with anorexia is looking at themselves through the lens of someone else's belief system. That you're not good enough, you're not lovable just the way you are, you're defective in some way. Those are three main things that are common when it comes to people who have challenged with food choices, whether it be quantity or choices in and of themselves. So what QNRT does is we can go in and find the root cause of what part of your brain is associated with your choice to either eat or not eat or purge and things like that, by figuring out, okay, when did it start, who was involved, what role models did you have, and things like that. Because anorexia is definitely would be called a negative pattern. It's this underlying cause of self-sabotage. The symptom is the lack of eating, or in the case of bulimia, it'd be the overeating and purging. But it's not going to, identifying it and going to the Emily program or something like that is not going to cure it. You can go and talk about how you think about food all day long. But until you start changing how you feel about food and how you start changing how you feel about your body, nothing's going to change in your life. You're going to keep going through the same rut. It's like you're in a snowstorm and your wheel's stuck in a rut and you can't get out of the rut. Okay, as an example. So identifying the stress element, identifying the relationship that triggered a person to become anorexic in the first place because of the other person's belief system or the circumstances they were raised in, and whatever it might be. It's helpful to understand that someone with an eating disorder is going to be benefited by ultimately feeling better about themselves and not thinking too much, because a person's already thinking too much. Like, did I eat too much? Did I not eat enough? Should I purge what I ate? Should I starve myself for this long? You know, how broken down am I going to get before I start eating again? It's a cycle. Okay, you got to break the cycle, and so when you identify the cycle, you can break the cycle. Okay. So just as a reflection there, understand that anyone with an eating disorder is usually doing it because they have a self-evaluating conflict and they're looking at their body as not good enough, not acceptable just the way it is. And just understand that, you know, just loving oneself just the way you are, repeating to yourself over and over 100 times a day if you have to, I'm perfectly lovable just the way I am, and or I deeply and completely love and accept myself, even if I wasn't shown how to accept myself. Because a lot of challenges with children with eating disorders and things like that is because they never felt good enough for their parents for whatever reason, and it's usually because the parents never felt good enough themselves. And when you understand that, then you can understand, okay, that the belief system surrounding an eating disorder is really related to a belief system that someone else had, and they imprinted it on me. Okay, so let's talk about how can we make sure we are breathing from our belly and not our chest. Well, just like anything in life, self-awareness is critically important, and when you become self-aware of your breathing, a lot of things can happen. So when you think about breathing, so if you don't know how to breathe from your abdomen, right, you can lay in bed and you can put one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly button. And if you breathe in, your belly button should rise, and as you breathe out, your belly should fall. Now that's what you want to do for relaxation breathing, and or just general, if I'm sitting here, I want to be breathing into my abdomen. If I'm sitting here like this and I'm, you know, you guys, and it's really exciting, and I'm all anxious and nervous, I'm breathing into my chest, right? That's anxious breathing, that's anxiety breathing. That's an indication that you are holding your tension, okay? And you're not allowing the diaphragm to breathe. Now, the diaphragm's a muscle that runs like in a half of an inner tube, like this direction. And it's pretty big. I mean, mine is probably this deep, and it wraps around like this, okay, on the inside, underneath my ribs. As I breathe in, the muscle contracts and it pushes down the abdomen, the intestines, and that's what makes your abdomen come out. When you breathe out, they come back in and everything rises back up. That allows for the diaphragm to drop and allows air to be drawn into the lungs, okay, through the pleural cavity. And then as you exhale, the diaphragm rises and things like that, okay? So the question is, how can we make sure we're breathing that way? It's really first and foremost to be conscious of it. If you're not conscious of your breathing, then you have no idea whether you're actually breathing through your abdomen or not. So a good thing is that when you're first learning how to breathe in your abdomen, you want to do check-ins. Say, how is it that I'm breathing right now? You know, so if you can just pause, and certainly don't do it when you're driving, but pause and just close your eyes and listen, feel your body. Okay. So if you feel like my shoulders are rising up and down as I'm breathing in, you're lifting your rib cage up to allow your lungs to fill, rather than allowing the diaphragm to drop and push the abdomen forward and allow air to fill the lungs. Okay. One is much more active breathing. You would want to do that if you were doing sprints or some type of exercise and something like that. You want to breathe into your chest because you need more rapid perfusion or rapid filling of the lungs. It's really hard to maintain diaphragm breathing when you're doing strenuous exercise. It's just very challenging because you need more rapid exchange of the gas to get the CO2 off and the oxygen in. But just be mindful. So being self-aware, whether it's of your thoughts or whether it's your breathing, whether it's your actions, just being aware and observing yourself. Let's say you are typically a chest breather. You find yourself really short, shallow breaths and chest breathing. Focus, like just kind of, if you're sitting there somewhere, just have your hand under your abdomen and breathe in and out of your belly button. It's really helpful, okay? Got a couple questions, one from Sarah and one from Ashley. So we will address those in a second. Okay, so basically self-awareness, practice with one hand on the chest, one hand on the abdomen. When you're breathing through your diaphragm, your belly button's only going to move. And at first it might be challenging because some people hold a lot of tension in their diaphragm. And if you don't breathe in your diaphragm very regularly and haven't practiced it, you're going to have to practice. Okay, so all good things come from practice. So the hand on the chest shouldn't move, and the belly should move up and down. Out as I breathe in as I breathe out, okay? So focus on that. So let's check out Sarah's question here. She had something along the same lines. So along the same lines, okay, yeah, she's just commenting on the, yes, okay. So you can't say the right thing to the wrong person, you can't say the wrong thing to the right person. She's mentioning the idea that those who matter don't mind and those who mind don't matter. Absolutely. An unhealed person can find offense in pretty much anything. This is very true, Sarah. A healed person understands the actions of others and has absolutely nothing to do with them. Fantastic. Yeah, each day you get to decide how you're going to be. Yeah, you get to choose how you're going to feel. You can either be at effect of everything else, or excuse me, you can be at cause with creating your future and creating your life, or you can be at effect of other people's actions and allowing other people to control how you feel and how you navigate your life. So that's akin to what Sarah's trying to say here. And then Ashley has a question about when you go snorkeling in the sea. A snorkel is designed to breathe in and out when you're snorkeling. Absolutely, yeah. So the diaphragm is like a snorkel. It's like breathing in and out. Okay, diaphragm drops when you breathe in, it out when you go out. Okay, that's great comment there. I haven't done an extensive amount of snorkeling, Ashley, so if you have another comment to share give people another insight, that's great. Appreciate it. All right, so we're moving on to our next question. Can core exercises work for the pelvic floor, or should we have exercises focusing on the pelvic floor? Great question. Now, depending on what muscles and how you are able to isolate the muscles in your core, whether you're doing your rectus abdominis, your transverse abdominis, your obliquus abdominis, there's different muscles you're going to use. Everything's connected in your body. So if you're using your core, you're most likely going to be tensing your pelvic floor in the same vein. But you should definitely, if you want to focus on your pelvic floor, you should focus on your pelvic floor. One of the easiest things you can do is called a Kegel exercise. Kegels are basically, you tense the muscles that are used for if you were to stop urine stream or if you stop a bowel movement, okay? You're basically pulling the pelvic floor up and down and tensing that, okay? Of course, it's kind of a joke. Like I'm sure that they've had jokes on The Office and other shows like that. Like I'm doing Kegels right now, you don't even know it. People try to be silly, but understanding that you want to focus on your pelvic floor or focus on your abs, and don't assume they're going to be crossing over. Now, if I tense my pelvic floor, I can absolutely feel my abdominal muscles tensing, but it's not going to be the same thing. I think more as compound movements of moving your body all around. Like the strongest core you'll ever have is when you're doing compound movements of like squatting and things like that. Those are compound movements where you actually have to stabilize your core and strengthen it that way. Now you can do V-ups and you can do hanging leg raises and things like that. But what you want to appreciate is that isolating your core muscles when they're meant to be part of a system is a different story, right? You want to have things that are related to compound movements, which you're moving the whole body and activating the core in a bunch of different motions, rather than just ripping out 25 reps of crunches or hanging leg raises and stuff like that. You can isolate your abs all day long, but if you want to focus on your pelvic floor, then you want to imagine like a canopy, and think of it as like a canopy you'd lay in, like a hammock, and think about pulling it up and dropping it down, and pulling it up and dropping it down. That's a great way to think about it. So as you breathe in, you can tense it, and then you can relax it, okay? So that's a great way to do it. Dr. Joe Dispenza describes a breathing technique that he outlines in one of his interviews that I've seen in recent months, where the idea is to breathe in and draw the air up from the pelvic floor all the way up through to your pineal gland, which sits, I mentioned this before, it's like above your ear but right between your eyes, so it sits back here. And you got something to add over here, or you can bring somebody back for pulse? Awesome, sweet. Well, they can just join the party then. All right. So I'm back in the PMF room, and we're going to do we got a participant doing some pulse. So they're going to be hanging out with us. Hopefully the ticking's not too loud. Hey, Mark. How are you doing, Chief?
I'm doing fine.
Fine and dandy. All right. So hopefully that answers your question about the pelvic floor and doing an exercise like that. It's like Ashley says, full snorkel mask is the best to breathe underwater because there is an inside of the mask, inside of putting a snorkel on in your mouth. Fantastic. Great insight. Ashley, thanks so much for that. All right, so after pelvic floors, we're going to focus on bone broth and when we should avoid it. Okay. So what should we look for in a bone broth, and when should we avoid it? Well, you want to have a natural form. Obviously, you want an animal producing the bone broth, right? Because you got bones to make the broth. You want an animal that's raised organically as much as possible. If you have a company that actually checks for lead levels in the bone broth, because we, as mammals and animals in general, they bioaccumulate. So there can be lead sources in different areas, and bone has been known to collect lead in the past. So what you want to consider is that you want to make sure you have lead-free bone, and just get quality organic bone broth. Okay. When should you avoid it? Well, I wouldn't just go grab any bone broth off the shelf. I would research the company. I don't consume them all that often, but I have used some in the past. And so what you want to consider is look for organic quality bone broths. Okay. Best recipe for good sleep. Best recipe for good sleep is to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. When you do that, you're going to set yourself up for a lot of success. Okay. So when you go to sleep at the same time, your body gets in a rhythm. Okay. So I like to go to bed. Since they shut down our gym, I've been going to bed 10, 10:30, things like that. I got to make myself go to bed. It's tough to stop every day, but I like to go to bed 9, 9:30 and wake up at 4:45 every day, because that is my rhythm. That's what I found is like my best pace. So first and foremost, go to bed at the same time every night and get up at the same time every day. Have your room as dark as possible, so there's no ambient light. The idea with kids having night lights and stuff like that, I can assure you that Sophia's never been afraid of the dark. She's been in the dark ever since she was born. She's 3.5. Things change, but when a kid feels safe, they don't have a problem with the dark. Okay. So sleep time, same time every night. Get up at the same time every night. Make sure you're not drinking or eating too late. That's really important. Not having too many caffeinated beverages late in the evening. You don't want to consume, coffee probably after 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Anything caffeinated beverages definitely no later than 5. People with swing shifts and second shifts, or excuse me, second swing is the same. Third shifts and second shifts are tougher because they tend to have different sleep cycles. So you got to manage your sleep cycle based on that. But so no light in the room, dark as can be, a nice cool ambient temperature, somewhere between 69 and 71 is an ideal temperature for sleeping. You don't want to be too hot or too cold, but people tend to sleep better when it's cooler. Generally speaking, every minute before midnight is worth 3 minutes after midnight when you sleep. So if you can get more time before sleep, or at least get good 3 solid hours before midnight, rather than staying up to the midnight hours and stuff like that, it takes you a lot longer to sleep to get the same benefit. Plus your liver and gallbladder. So your gallbladder at this point, I think it's midnight to 2 is right now is the gallbladder time, and then 2 to 4 is the liver time. So if you're up during those hours and you're consuming things, you're depriving your body's the opportunity to heal itself. And you definitely want to do that, because healing is mostly done when you're sleeping, because you're not doing anything. You're not consuming any food, you're not moving your body. Your body goes into repair mode. Okay? It's like the maintenance crew comes in to fix up your site, stuff like that. Those would be the best things. I mean, if you need melatonin to help you regulate your biorhythm, that's fine. Melatonin is decreased by cell radiation and Wi-Fi radiation, so turn off your Wi-Fi router at night. Make sure your cell phone's on airplane mode. You can get as far as going to do netting and stuff like that to block out EMFs. You can do Faraday cages. You can paint your walls with specific paint to have EMFs blocked out. You can have grounding mats. There's all kinds of stuff you can do to make sure your body's primed. But that's a good recipe as a general for good sleep. Go to bed at the same time, wake up at the same time. Take melatonin if you have a lot of Wi-Fi or EMF exposure. All dark room, no lights. Avoid a lot of fluids late at night. Avoid any caffeinated beverages. Avoid sugars and fats late in the evening, because that's going to affect your gallbladder's ability to detoxify, because you don't want to wake up between, during, now's daylight saving time, so it's 12 to 2. When we go back to fall, it'll be 11 to 1. So just be aware. Now look up a Chinese meridian clock. You can understand what's going on with your body. Let's see. Next question is hormone balance a real issue? Yes, absolutely. Hormone balance is a real issue. Next question, follow-up is that, can it be solved? And can you help me with this? Okay, so this is a young lady by the name of Samantha. Hormone balance is absolutely critical. If you could talk about estrogen hormones, you can talk about cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which is adrenaline. aldosterone for blood pressure. So your hormones are absolutely critical for everything in your life. If they are dysregulated or they're imbalanced, then you're not going to be a happy camper. Having imbalanced hormones, like if your liver's congested, you can't convert your thyroid hormone at your liver. But then if your liver's dumping garbage in your stomach and your small intestine, then you're going to have issues with converting thyroid hormone in your gut too, because there's T3 acetic acid that converted in the gut. So that's one hormone that a lot of people, women specifically, have issues with as far as energy, libido, mental clarity, hair thickness, skin and nails, bowel movements, all kinds of stuff, cold hands and feet. As a general rule of thumb, those are basic ideas that people have as far as associated with thyroid issues. But if you have insulin dysregulation, if you have insulin resistance and or other issues with blood sugar balance, that's going to throw everything off. So your insulin and your cortisol, are going to be a tug of war all day long. And if your blood sugar is not regulated, it's going to throw off all your reproductive hormones, which are also known as sex hormones. People want to know, like, how do I get pregnant, have balanced blood sugar, have a clean body, and things like that. So hormones are absolutely critical. Everybody's different as far as their hormone balance goes. Some people deal with improper detoxification of their hormones that their body is producing naturally. So, for example, women with a lot of PMS symptoms, a lot of fibrocystic breast or uterine tissues, that can come from blood sugar dysregulation, but it can also come, which is also part of congested liver. So if you're not, it's called, we'll just call it packaging, keep it simple. If your liver cannot package the hormone that your body's produced and throw it out through the gut or through the kidneys, then what's going to happen is it's going to get recirculated around. That causes a lot of issues. So lack of ability to detoxify causes issues with premenstrual syndrome, the intensity of a woman's flow, the duration of it, and things like that, and how long their cycle is. So some people go, I have a 28-day cycle, and other people are like, well, I have 7 days off and I'm back 7 days on, and I'm flip-flopping all that long. But so to answer Samantha's question in a short statement, yes, it's a real issue, and yes, we can help. It's an individualized thing. You can't just go to an endocrinologist and say, we test my hormones and then fix my hormones, because what happens is they're going to look at your hormone levels and they're not going to understand the root cause. Okay? And so when you think about balancing your hormones, you need something more dynamic than just simply taking your blood, urine, or saliva. I mean, you can use Dutch test, dried urine test for comprehensive hormones. That's a great one to test, like cortisol cycling, cortisol response testing for the morning. There are male panels you can do for that. You can do a lot of different things you can do for hormones. But the challenge is that even if you're doing a cycle testing over a day, like 24-hour period, it's still one day. And so you need to figure out, like, how can you control the other variables, like your stress level, your food for each day, your activity levels for each day, what's happening in the water and the air you're breathing. There are a lot of different variables. So Samantha, your case of hormone imbalance, if that's indeed what you're dealing with, is definitely unique to you and needs to be addressed in a personalized manner, rather than just simply saying, yep, I read a book from the medical medium, and now I know that it's really just Epstein-Barr that's throwing my hormones off. I'm making up an example here, but Anthony Williams is a brilliant man. He's got source speaking to him, so whatever you want to talk about. But if you don't have a personalized system and you don't have someone to be able to help you understand what's going on, then you're not going to get really anywhere over the long term, because you need someone who's going to teach you how to help yourself. And if someone's not teaching you, then they're not really a doctor. So you can go to a practitioner, but if they're not teaching you, because doctor means teacher, you need to have someone who's going to help you understand what your specific symptoms are. So what's your symptom, where's it coming from, how to get rid of it, and how to never have it again. And that's what a teacher does, helps you understand that. So if you, Samantha, want to learn how to help yourself, then contact us and let us know. Next question is, how important is proper footwear when walking and running? Well, proper footwear is absolutely critical. Your feet carry you around all day long, your entire life. So if you don't have healthy feet, you're not going to be a happy camper. You're not going to be very active. You're not going to enjoy life much, generally speaking. So what you want to do is have healthy feet. You want to have healthy feet regardless of the footwear you're wearing, though. That's important to understand. Footwear is important to support you, but when you think about footwear, it's like, okay, that's there to keep your feet from scraping the ground, really. That's what it's about. So we should really wear the most minimalistic shoes possible. A company that I like to purchase shoes from that I have in the past. It's called Vivo Barefoot. I know there are other brands, but it's basically a minimalistic shoe. It's like a slab of rubber that goes under your foot, and so you can feel every little stone under your foot. You can feel the ground and things like that. And what happens is you see generally speaking, our seniors, they wear shoes that are probably about, I'm exaggerating, but a couple 3 inches thick is what it looks like. They're walking on platform shoes because they have so much cushion there because their feet are so painful. But what the podiatrist won't tell them, what the guy at Schuler Shoes can't tell them, is that really it's the amount of alcohol and coffee and bad food and other stress that they have in their life that's really stressing their body out, which is not getting enough energy down to their feet. And that's why people think footwear is critical. I mean, just think about the kids who run in Kenya who don't have shoes, or the native population down in Mexico that are running in the mountains that don't have shoes, right? They don't have a problem. They can run all day long and not an issue, okay? So keep in mind that if your feet are an issue, then you really want to look upstream. So what is feeding your feet? If you don't have a healthy body, healthy insides, healthy energy production, if you can't maintain that, you can't feed your feet very well. So that's the most critical thing when it comes to footwear. But yes, so I mean, generally speaking, proper footwear is important. So next question associated with that is how much foot/leg pain is due to what we have on our feet and versus what's going on in our minds? Well, that's a great question. Pain is one thing. In fact, if you don't know what pain is really a perception in your mind. There's a signal being sent back from your body up your spine in the nerves to your brain. Your brain is basically a filtering system. It says, okay, what am I being told from my big toe or my arch or my heel or whatever that is like that. So when you think about it, your mind is what's perceiving the pain. It's just a sensory feedback. So it's a sensation in your foot, your body, your brain's trying to make sense of. So there's going to be always some portion of your pain being due to your mind. However, if you're just sitting on the couch and your foot is hurting, there's a different story going on, okay? So when you think about people who have pain no matter what they do, then that is an issue of a feedback mechanism. There's probably an unresolved conflict in the mind related to the feet. Now the feet are related to inability to follow in someone's footsteps, feeling tied down or feeling unsteady. So if any one of those three are an issue, then you can have a pain in your foot per se that is actually in your mind, and that part of your mind is connected to that part of your foot. So if you need to learn more about this, look up the image on Google Images or something like that called the cortical homunculus. And what that does is it basically shows you how the body is mapped on the mind, on the brain, and then you can actually, if you didn't have a skull cap, you could stick a needle in there and I could start twitching my big toe by just putting electrode in my head, which tells you that every part of the body can be mapped on the brain. So you can have pain in any part of your body, not just your foot, and it literally be a manifestation of a conflict in your mind that's unresolved. Hopefully that doesn't get too nerdy on you, but yes, there's going to be a portion that's in your mind, but it's also going to be in your foot as well, depending on how damaged it is. Looks like Shannon wants to know, are there any supplements, dietary restrictions you recommend for endometriosis? Well, one first step you could do, Shannon, is to go on our website and grab the anti-inflammation food guide. That's really going to help you understand what the major inflammatory foods are, which are gluten, dairy, corn, soy, and sugar. Those are just the 5 that are in the standard American diet, also known as the SAD diet. They're going to cause inflammation in your body. And when you're inflamed, up top, you're not going to have an energy source powerful enough to send energy down to your feet. When you understand that, it's a problem. Okay? If you don't have a power pack up here strong enough to send your battery power down there, you're going to have pain in your feet. When it comes to endometriosis, endometriitis, think less about the supplements I need to take and think first and foremost, like, am I not getting my estrogens out of my body? Because every man, woman, and child walking, talking, and breathing today is estrogen toxic until proven otherwise. That comes from the beauty products we put on our body, the plastic water bottles we drink from, the chemicals that are in our water. It goes on and on. Okay, they spray chemicals on the grass. It's never ending. So, and most of them are petrochemical based, which oftentimes turn into what are called xenoestrogens. Xeno meaning environmental. Xenoestrogens are toxic to the body, toxic to your hormone systems. They typically affect men and women a little differently, but endometriosis, endometriitis, you first and foremost want to look at your blood sugar and your ability to detoxify your hormones. So yes, you could use Opti Endocrine Balance that we have here at the clinic. You could use Opti Cleanse. You can use Opti Clear. There's a ton of stuff you could use, Shannon, to help your body heal itself. Best thing to do is know exactly what's right for you, because you can go on you Google-licious and type in, endometriosis or endometriosis, or fibrocystic breast or fibrocystic, uterine tissues or whatever you have, and you're going to find probably a gazillion different products that are marketed because the label says, "Man, this is fantastic." You might even find that they do put product like raw materials in there that are related to peer-reviewed research that says these are effective for X, Y, and Z symptoms. The challenge is most of the products on the internet are garbage, and they've been proven so. I mean, pretty much everything you buy at Target, CVS, GNC, and things like that, it's pretty much all garbage. And if you type in Attorney General of New York, they basically went and raided a bunch of places and took their stuff in and did genetic testing on what was in the bottle, and they found like 90% of what was in the bottle was on the label was not in the bottle. So you need to have someone to work with to understand like where they're getting their raw materials. So I've been to the manufacturing plants of the companies we work with, so I know about where they're getting their raw materials from, and I also know the standards that they're holding their products to, and that's why we use what we use. But Shannon, your specific issues with endometriosis or endometriosis are specifically related to you. So I would need to know more about your blood sugar regulation, about your liver and its ability to detoxify. How healthy is your gut? How much inflammation do you have in your body? What kind of stressors do you have in your body? So endometrial tissue is about the uterus, the uterine lining. So I'd look at neuroemotional stresses related to that as well. So what kind of struggles are you dealing with, especially in the area of men? That's very common as far as endometrial tissues. Feeling unable to nurture, unable to carry a baby, unable to nurture a relationship, things like that. Those are all different stresses, all different conflicts that can be residing in the mind that can affect the function of the body. If you're not getting what you need in a relationship, that can cause a starvation conflict in your liver, which is really going to affect your body's ability to detoxify and conjugate your hormones and get them out of your body. So there's so many different factors. I would strongly encourage you to work with someone who's going to not just run blood tests or lab tests, something like that, but actually dig in and say, okay, if I bring this in, what's going to happen? And that's why we use kinesiology, because if I bring in a raw material, let's say a variable, I want to say what's going to happen if I push on this lever over here, what's going to go over and over here? Is it going to raise it, lower it? Is it going to short circuit the whole thing? What's going to happen? Okay, so that's a long diatribe about hormones. Looks like Sarah had a question about piggybacking for footwear question. What about the surface you're standing on, walking on all day? For sure. Someone standing on concrete all day and feel pain in their feet, there's no question. What you stand on all day is going to determine, in part, how much pain you're feeling. There is some component of it to say, like, going back to how healthy is your body, how healthy is your body's ability to create energy and send it down to your feet. I mean, if you think about, I'm a little over 6 foot. I've got at least 3 feet from my kidney and my adrenal system where the energy is produced to send it down to my feet. Okay, that's a good long distance. So if I'm fatigued, if I'm running myself down, if I'm doing too many things, if I'm not nurturing my body, I'm not providing enough nourishment, then what's going to happen is, I'm going to run out of juice and my feet are going to hurt. But standing on concrete all day long, I can guarantee you it's painful. I mean, before they screwed up our HVAC system in this building back in 2017, I used to stand on, hardwood dress shoes. I used to wear dress slacks. And then, fortunately, the cooling tower went down and it was 90 degrees out, so it was 87 degrees in our treatment room. And I said, well, I'm going to wear wind pants and a polo shirt. And so I wore tennies, wind pants, and polo shirt. And then I started scratching my head, what am I doing wearing button-down shirts, dress slacks, and wood shoes? That was just a horrible idea because I'm on my feet all day long. So I decided to switch over to wearing scrubs and wearing athletic shoes. But then I even went a step further and got a fatigue mat for both sides of our treatment tables so I can stand on something cushy and take stress off my body. So yes, Sarah, to your question, definitely want to stand on something soft. It doesn't matter if you're standing on concrete, you could be standing on a carpeted floor, even in your room, your bedroom, let's say you work from home, given everybody's going toward remote work now, you got a sit stand or something like that. Spend most of your time standing, unless of course you need to do really concerted focused thought. It's proven that your mind focuses better when you sit down. So if you really need to focus on something, just sit down for a while and then let your mind focus. But if you're just doing mundane things and answering emails and stuff like that, just stand up and do that all day long. But you want to have some good, healthy shoes. I think I found my next favorite pair of shoes. These things are called Sanuks, and they're basically, just can fold them in half. There's nothing to them, but they're nice and cushy. So I stand on my feet 9 to 10 hours a day, so I want something comfortable. So that's probably the direction I'm going to go, even though I already wear a pair of shoes that are super comfy anyway. But can you ever be too comfortable is the question. You have to ask that for yourself. So hopefully that answers your question. And yes, you don't want to stand on concrete all day long. You don't want to stand on hardwood floor or tile all day long if you can avoid it. If you can put fatigue mats down, fantastic. Wellness mats are the ones that we use. If you need information about it, we have a flyer out in the reception area. You can ask one of the team members. They can email you information about that, because that's going to help you have a nice comfy surface to stand on. So let's see, what else? Anything else? Looks like Jenny and Melissa have joined us. Hi guys, or ladies I should say. So next question is, what is mucoid plaque? Is there a deeper approach to releasing this from your gut along with doing coffee enemas? So mucoid plaque. So think of mucus, okay? The inside of your lining, so your gut's like a garden hose. If I took my small intestine out and stretched it, it's like 25 to 33 feet. And so when you understand that, along that lining, your body has different chemical receptors. One of the things it produces is mucus, okay, to decrease inflammation and to help things move through. So mucoid plaque is also thought to be, in part, a residue on the inside of your gut lining that's associated with like food residue and garbage left over. And remember, your guts are squeezing all day long toward the exit, okay? At least they should be. And they're trying to move that stuff out. So mucoid plaque is basically debris left over from your foodstuffs, as well as the mucus that your body's producing to decrease inflammation. As far as a deeper connection or a deeper approach to releasing it from the gut other than doing coffee enemas, first of all, do things that are anti-inflammatory. Decrease your inflammation, first and foremost. Get the anti-inflammatory food guide from our website or from one of our team members. First step, because you don't want to add fuel to a fire you don't want burning anymore. That's really important. Using things like bulk fibers will help you cleanse your gut lining. You don't want to do too much of them, but if you tend to be constipated or have trouble cleansing those mucoid things, you can use bulk fiber. We have OptiGI Cleanse, that's great. You can use Cleanzyme, you could use Mediclay FX, you can use GI Detox. There's a bunch of different things. What you always want to ask yourself is, if I do indeed have excess mucoid plaque, why do I have that in the first place, and how do I stop it from overproducing? If you have inflammation in your gut and mucoid plaquing, or things like that, you really want to figure out what the root cause of that is. So that's step number one. Then you can use the binders or the pushers like bulk fibers and things like that to move it out, okay? All right. Another question is, are our dreams a reflection of something meaningful and correlating to our mental health? Well, when you're sleeping, you're either in delta, which means you're knocked out, there's no conscious thought going on, or you're in theta state, which means you're lucid dreaming, or somewhere in between, like you have a REM cycle where you're in and out of that, okay, during the night. And then, of course, you have alpha, which is a relaxation wave. So as you go from wake to sleep, you're going to go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and then you're going to come in and out of delta and theta when you're sleeping, and then you're going to come back up to alpha, and then you come back up to beta when you're thinking, okay? And your brain's moving in and out of the theta, alpha, delta all day long, okay? Children who are, until they're about the age of 7, they're in theta. So the first 2 years are basically in delta, then they shift from delta to theta. So that's why kids are so creative and so, they have such a wild imagination, because they're in lucid dreaming all day long. It's pretty cool to watch, because they don't confine themselves to the limiting beliefs that a lot of we adults have. So as far as do dreams have a connection with our mental health, I would say that they're part of what your brain is processing on a subconscious level. So if you ever have a dream that happens over and over and over, you might consider paying attention to that, because it's probably telling you something about what's going on in your life. It's sending you a message. It's saying, you might want to look into this. Some kids have night terrors. Some kids have nightmares that happen all the time and stuff like that. So if you have a child that's like that, then you want to get more information about it and help understand what it's about, and help seeing what you can change about their daily life in order to change how they're feeling about their dreams, okay? I don't necessarily know that it has a positive or negative indication of what's going on in your mental health. Some people dream wildly. Some people have very lucid dreams. Some people have some dreams. Some people remember some of their dreams. Some people have no dreams. And there are people who say there's something good, bad, and indifferent about all those. I'll be honest with you. When I'm asleep, I'm asleep. And when I'm awake, I'm awake. And that's what I focus on. If I have a dream that happens over and over and over, I start paying attention to it because I think it's probably my subconscious brain telling me there's unresolved conflict that I need to address. Will be my first step. So that's where I would leave that. I don't know that everybody's dreams are different. I don't know how they correlate, but I would say that if you do have one over and over, it's going to be related to some type of unresolved conflict you have. That's my best understanding of it, based on what I know about the brain. All right, last question here is coming. It says, when looking at the line of health versus unhealthy, which everyone is different, how do we find our line? Well, that is really tough to say from an objective standpoint. I would say that ultimately I want to feel like I'm not stressed, like I have a great deal of energy, like I sleep well, and that my mood is stable. Those are some things that I would say, okay? Great sleep, great energy, mood is stable, and not too stressed. That for me is like what the line for health is. Now, I try to focus on, if I imagine a line of, let's say disease is off to this side and health is off to this side, I try to make my choices be over on this side. If this is like let's say it's a chasm like a Grand Canyon, right? So health is on this side and disease is on this side, and there's somewhere in between that we're kind of operating all day long. But if this is like the middle of the road, I want to be erring on the side of prevention, erring on the side of being proactive in health. There are obviously cases of people being obsessive compulsive about their health. There's a condition that someone's labeled called orthorexia, which is like I have to eat the perfect meal, the perfect diet, this and that. Well, there's no such thing as perfect, and people that focus on that usually burn themselves down to the ground. I can tell you I'm a recovering perfectionist myself, and it limited me from accomplishing a lot of things and experiencing a lot of things in my life. But for me, it's like, okay, now that I'm not trying to be perfect. I know I'm going to take steps by certain choices I make moving toward back to the middle of the road, but I know that if 80 to 100% of everything I do is on this side, then I can have those days where I have this after a meal or this before a meal or this as a meal or whatever it is, and I know that it's not going to throw me off course. So the line for you has to be understanding, like, what do you define as your health? So first of all, like who you are in the world, you want to define yourself or define your line of health. Like for me, health is getting good sleep, having great energy, having a balanced, stable mood, not being too stressed, not doing too much. For a long time, I used to do, too many activities, too much, and it's just exhausting. I look at some of the parents, out there, and I see that they're doing, Susie's got soccer over here, and Johnny's got lacrosse over here, and Billy's playing hockey here, and they're just taxi cabs. And so what I would encourage them to do is work with other parents to say, okay, on this night of the week, I'm going to pick up the kids. Like I'll work with two other parents and say, okay, we got a rotation. This week on Tuesday, I'm picking up the kids. I'll pick up your kid and then their kid and their kid, and I got a minivan or whatever. I don't have a minivan, but you can imagine. And then say next week is yours, and then the following week is theirs. And so it unburdens, okay, so that the parent can actually have a life rather than just be in the taxi cab for the kid. Or if you're a person that constantly fills their schedule because you feel uncomfortable sitting still, okay, I know that because I used to be that way. Understanding that that's an indication that maybe you need to spend more time being still, or at least consider it, rather than focusing on how can I do this, and then that, and then that, and then that, and that, and everything else, and fill your schedule. So you never have a minute to be quiet, never a minute to be still, never a minute to be reflecting on what's your body doing, what's going on in your life, how are my relationships, how do I feel about them, how do I feel about myself, things like that. So the line for you, what health is absolutely personal. I mean, that I know what it is for me because I've experimented exhaustingly. I don't have to do it anymore because I spend a lot of time experimenting. What foods work for me, what activities work for me, what level of activity, how frequent, what kind of sleep do I need? Do I need more? Do I need less? Do I need to go to bed earlier? Do I need to go to bed later? It's all about getting excited about experimenting and just not focusing on too many things at one time. Say, okay, I want to focus this month on my sleep, so I'm going to have a sleep journal. And I'm going to focus on writing down what time I go to bed, what I ate before bed, last time I ate dinner. So chronicle your dinner time, your bedtime, anything you had in between. what time you went to bed, what time you woke up, if you got up and went to the bathroom, how good you feel when you wake up in the morning, things like that. How is your energy during the day? Prioritize sleep before midnight, not after midnight. I know I heard plenty of people say I'm a night owl. You know, I used to be one too. Trust me. I used to argue with people like, look, my best time is, you know, from 11 to 1. Okay, that's what I used to convince myself. But when you change your story, you can change your life. So stop telling yourself the same story and start changing your life. Took me, you know, probably 3 months or 4 to start saying, okay, instead of going to bed at 11:30, I'm going to go to 10:30, and from 10:30, you know, I'm going to 10, and from 10 to 9:30ish, like there. And okay, so I got to bed going earlier, and then I figured out, okay, so now what's my wake up time? Is it 6:30? Is it 6? Is it 5:30? Is it 5? And then for me, it's just like, in order for me to feel calm, relaxed, and centered in the morning, like I get up at 4:45, my ideal time. I have time to ease into my day, reflect on my gratitudes, engage in my activities, exercise, doing my personal care, and then I get to help out with getting Sophia up and getting her going. And then I transition to the day, and I help Sarah do whatever she's got to do, or, you know, she's, you know, working from home right now, so she does a lot. She likes to get out of the house because she's been at home for 8 weeks or so. So she takes Sophia to school and picks her up, and she just likes to get out of the house. I mean, I don't blame her. So have a great weekend, guys. So you got to find out what your balance is. Everybody's different, but don't look at it as a burden. Look at it as an opportunity. Think of it as, oh man, I get to experiment. That's so fun. Like if you're not excited about experimenting about your own life, I mean, it's yours. You know, it's the only one you got that we know of. So just start tinkering around. Say, okay, what's my sleep like? How am I feeling in the morning? If I feel like crap, how much coffee am I drinking? How many Red Bulls or how many Monsters am I drinking? Am I eating, you know, a lot of chocolate late at night? Am I eating a lot of sugar, a lot of ice cream? Just start paying attention. Just start getting curious about it. That's my best recommendation for you as far as finding your line of health. Everybody's different, and it requires experimentation. And you will find amazing things happen when you experiment. It's all about designing the life you want. In fact, you know, what I do routinely is say, okay, what is my ideal life? And that's changing over time. Like I'm thinking about, okay, in the fall we got another one coming. We got a little one coming. So I'm like, okay, I know that, you know, Sarah's not going to be able to do everything that she's doing now. She's an amazing woman and does crazy things. So she, you know, she's not going to be able to do as much. So I'm going to have to change my schedule, my professional schedule, in order to facilitate drop off and pick up with Sophia, so that I can unburden Sarah in that aspect, so she's not trying to handle, you know, a newborn in a car seat, going into daycare at peace of mind, picking up peace of mind kid, you know, Sophia, getting her back in the car. You know, I mean, it's exhausting. I mean, I can't imagine having 3 of them. You know, they're amazing, and we love them to death. And, you know, I'd have 20 of them, you know, provided I had an entourage of people help me with them. But, you know, what I would say is that design your ideal life, your activities, your relationships, your work, what your day-to-day looks like, you know, how much free time you have for yourself, what you're doing during that free time, things like that. Because that's going to be amazing, because when you start planning it, you can start creating it. But if you're living day-to-day like, oh, I'm just at effect of everything else, and, oh, you know, here we go again, I got to go to work, or I got to go do this, or I got to pick up that, or da-da-da-da-da, you're going to feel like pushed around by life, okay? So instead of being pushed around by life, take life by the horns, you know, the bull by the horns, and say, I'm going to steer this sucker instead of allowing it to steer me, okay? Yeah, that's about it. Let me just take a peek here. All right, so it's about 10 after 1. Nobody's really popped up a question, so for this week we're just going to sign off with our live Q&A. Always welcome to ask anything you want. Text us in your questions, 651-728-1390, 651-728-1390, or call it into the clinic line, 651-738-7800. That number again, 651-738-7800. The email is heal, H-E-A-L, like I'm healing, is heal at sequoiahealth.com. If you don't know how to spell Sequoia, you can probably look at the shirt here or on the Facebook or the Instagram here. You already know what it is. So heal at sequoiahealth.com. We love answering your questions. I love providing value for you. I love helping you sift through all the BS and all the misinformation and all the confusion out there. I spend hours a day exhaustingly researching things and understanding things. I try to filter it out so people don't have to do that. That's why people come here, because they want someone who is obsessed with it, and they want someone who's going to distill it down for them. So that's our pleasure and our mission. So let us know how we can help you, so how we can add value to your lives. Thanks, Sarah. We love you too. We'll look forward to seeing you on Wednesday coming up for Wednesday Wellness Minutes. If you ever have a topic or subject matter, or if you got a physical condition that nobody can figure out and you want someone to figure it out, you come on in here. We'll go Facebook, Instagram Live, and we will show the world how to fix whatever you got going on, okay? I can assure you it's not as complex as people have made it out to be. So take that if you will, and we will wish you all the best weekend possible. Get outside, enjoy the fresh air, live life, stay away from rioters, and stop worrying about COVID, all right? All right, guys, take care. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.